a little fun ethics. So here we are, episode 2 of Haunted Huronia, the podcast.
Numero dos.
Numero dos.
I think I'm going to put 2 doce.
I don't know. I've suddenly lost my French.
De.
There you go.
Numero de.
Duo. I just made it sound Italian. I don't know if it was actually pronounced.
Making up words.
Anyway, as anyone who has watched our previous podcasts maybe have noticed that there was 3 of us last time. This time you've got Jamie and I. You've got Dose. Dose for episode Dose. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about a couple different things. We're all going to hear some stories, share some stories, and we're going to hopefully have our first live call as well. So I'm excited to jump into this one. I'm also going to be sharing a story I have not, as of yet, shared with our Haunted Huronia past of my own experience that I had.
This is going to be a big episode. There's a lot of exciting stuff. There's we're going to have a worldwide breakthrough. I'm going to say something that no one knows yet. Oh
boy, I'm excited. I don't know how to
word that properly. A world.
Exclusive?
Not a premiere.
I don't know. We're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out.
I'll remember what I'm trying to say later.
So for those of us those of you that are joining us for the first time, Jamie, what is Haunted Huronia?
Haunted Huronia is a television show that I created from my head.
Oh, you're rocking it today.
Yes, I'm sorry. This is where I should have spoke before we got on air. Haunted Huronia is a television show. It's on Bell 5. Season 1 is now in the books and complete. Yes. I don't believe all the episodes are online or on Bell to watch yet, but season 1 is done. So Haunted Huronia is 1 season of Ghost. It's a show about haunted locations in and around the Huronia area. We basically go through the history of the location, and then we do a investigation ourselves, myself and you, Deanna. We are not ghost hunters or professional paranormal experts or anything, but we are enthusiasts, and we do know a fair amount about the other world, I guess, or the other side. And we have a lot of fun with the show. We're trying to find some evidence as to, well, my goal is to find evidence of, paranormal and ghostly spirit activity, and try myself to prove its existence, really.
Cool.
Never worded it that way at all. I realized, is that really what this show's about?
Well, I think, as we touched on in the last episode, what makes the show a bit unique is that we take the audience with us. So we use the same equipment that they can get their hands on as well. So that's kind of where we're at. So my question for you is what is a ghost in your mind, Jamie? When you think of the concept of a ghost, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. Because you hear ghost, or I hear ghost, and I think, Ghostbusters and things along those lines, and, just scary things. Ghost is such a weird term, right? Ghost is just kind of, I feel like it's just a term that has been kind of mainstreamed and like brought out and made sexy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really
glamorized.
know how to, like glamorized. It's like a spirit or a haunting. But yeah, ghost, you hear ghost. I don't know. There's lots of things. Casper comes to mind. But yeah, I don't know. Ghost is a weird term. And again, we're not professionals or anything, but when you watch other shows and hear paranormal experts speak of stuff, you don't hear them use the word ghost. You don't really hear the term ghost very often, actually.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I asked it, because I think for a long time, even leading into the show, I was thinking of the concept of a ghost, and I think my own language has shifted. But before I go into kind of what we tend to refer to, the paranormal activity that we kind of investigate, if you will, the definition that I have is an apparition of a dead person that is believed to appear or become manifested to the living, typically as a nebulous image. It's a faint trace of something. Again, these are different definitions. But really that first one is kind of where that concept of it is. But I think the way that my mindset has shifted to it is really the concept more of the spirit.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the definition. I'm excited to hear it from you in a second. But yeah, I mean, ghost and spirit to me are kind of like, I mean, they're one and the same. I personally am not I'm not a ghost or paranormal snob. I'll say ghost. I'll use that term, and I don't cringe at hearing it like some people might, and not just because of what it is, because they don't like the word. But yeah, to me, ghost and spirit are along the same line. You hear spirit, you do kind of get a different, or I personally get a different connotation or thought in my head that more. I don't know why, but it just seems friendlier. You know, you hear Casper the Friendly Ghost, but you hear ghost and you don't really think that. But spirit to me is still like,
it's like softer.
Yeah,
almost.
like something from your soul, just something, you know what I mean, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear ghost, you think horror movie. You hear spirit, you think, you know, just
someone there to protect you, or like a
guardian angel
yeah.
almost. But that's just my personal opinion based on absolutely nothing.
No, but I think that's valid. I mean, the definition I have here is the non-physical part of a person that is the seat of emotions and character, the soul. Huh. And I think, I mean, if you think about it as non-physical, right? As if it was physical being, we would see it more with a blind eye. Now, to argue that is we've spoken with a lot of mediums and people that are able to see spirit that actually do see full form individuals. So that becomes its own kind of conversation where it's like, what is that definition of what is a spirit? What is a ghost? What is that paranormal thing? But I think it's interesting that what you just discussed as far as the positive and negative association with ghosts and spirit. And I do think that, you know, ghosts, for some reason, and then, again, this is just our opinion, it does go to that place of negativity, of perhaps, you know, but also, to me, connects to someone, to a spirit or something that knows that they've passed. And one of the things that we've experienced and learned along our journey, with this show, is that not every ghost or spirit is even aware that they've passed on.
Seems like from our experience that most are not aware, right? From, again, very, very minimal experience. I mean, we had experience, but not. Again, we're not. I can't talk to ghosts or spirits or anything. I don't know what they're actually thinking. But from the way things kind of have played out and from what we've experienced, it seems to me that for the most part they don't even realize that they're not with us in the physical plane. It's
interesting. There's a story that I was going to hold on to for another episode, but I think I am going to talk about it in this episode because I feel as though it really fits really well into this.
Okay.
But before we go into that,
yes.
I was curious as to, for those out there that perhaps haven't ever experienced a haunting before or anything like that. You know, as you said, like the nature of this show is we go to places with historical pasts, some of which have had trauma in the previous versions of themselves. And we go in, what is different about the way that we do our investigations is we actually do go in blind to the history. And we speak with some of the people that work there. And we just kind of go in almost forgetting everything we just heard, and just being present in the moment. So, you know, some may say, well, you know, maybe your experiences are manipulated by, you know, what you've been told. Which is a fair thing to say. However, in most of the cases, we have actually picked up on something or experienced something that was actually not shared to us, and we discovered later on was something that had happened with other people, or that there was more to that story that we picked up on. So
a lot of that, really.
A
lot of times. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Maybe we'll see in season 2. Going back to the places with a medium or with somebody that has more information, because some of the stuff nobody could answer. Like this is a weird feeling. We're connecting with this type of person that didn't even fit any of the stories that were there. So it was, there's a lot of cool experiences like that.
And on that realm of, you kind of just hit on this, is when in the investigations that we have done, what are some of the feelings that you'd have on a haunted property? What are some of the ones that you have had specifically?
So, again, coming into this, I have had experiences in my lifetime leading up to this. I'll always put myself on the realm of a believer more than not. I do also. I'm not the kind of person that just this is true and there's no other way around it. Like I am very open-minded to any thought and anything that you can tell me. I'll definitely listen and try and put it together. I'm not no concrete evidence on anything. I mean, I think we have some concrete evidence on a lot of stuff. But again, going in, I had my opinions on things, and I've experienced some stuff that is just unexplainable, and I have my opinion on it, but I don't know. So back to what feelings that personally and seem to go along with most people that have been in situations where there are hauntings. Typically, the temperature change is a big one when you feel it get colder for absolutely no reason. Like, sure, it could be a draft. Sure, there could be whatever. Maybe it's just a spot that's cold in the house, but like, let's try and use science here and be realistic. Like, yeah, okay, maybe that just happens, but typically a change in temperature or a big drop in temperature is a good sign. Those goosebumps you get, that weird feeling, just that feeling, right? Where something's like, you just start, something's up. You feel somebody watching you. You feel somebody near you. It's just a feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people get those all the time. You can ignore it if you choose, of course. But, I think all of us have this psychic or whatever thing in us that a lot of people just choose to ignore or not use, right? Like, our brains, what's that? I don't know the exact number. I'm going to probably sound like an idiot. But we only use, 10% of our brain or something like that?
I don't know. But I think what you're saying is interesting because if you think about it, people will say, kids, like babies, animals tend to see spirit more than human beings, or not human beings. They're all human beings, but more than adults because we shut off a part of our brain. We what is the word? Like we talk ourselves out of those feelings. And I should say, I did find this article by Carla Chalice. I think that's how you pronounce her last name, Challis. And one of the things within the article is, what feelings would I have in a haunted property? And Jamie actually just touched on almost every single one of them exactly. I have not shown you these.
No.
And it's funny as I read these, I can pinpoint on multiple episodes all of those moments. Now
that's got to be in there too. I didn't even get close to finishing. I just said a couple.
Oh, sorry.
But nausea, like you just kind of feel a little nauseous, or one thing like I couldn't tell if you're hungry, or you just know that feeling, or you just like your stomach just doesn't feel right. Okay, go ahead.
You did hit them though, but the feelings of being watched or spied on is definitely something we've experienced from the very beginning on every single investigation. Feelings of someone standing close behind you, which I've had many, many times. Feelings of being touched by unseen hands. I have definitely had that a lot. I tend to be the person who does a lot of our pendulum stuff, and I'm often holding our meters. I tend to get a lot of grips on the wrists.
You end up getting a lot of the stuff happen too.
which may for some sound awesome, but it's not always awesome feeling.
It's almost like a seems like a planned thing in the show. Like, what's going to happen to Dee this time?
Feelings of the hair on the back of your neck standing up. Jamie commented on that. Feelings of cobwebs on your face or body. Definitely had that a couple times, but didn't associate that.
No, I had that a bunch, and I didn't realize.
Yeah,
that's interesting. You see, you can see in episode 1 that when I walked through the safe.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking all over the place, that's what
right.
I felt like there was. Weird.
Interesting.
Never actually said that until right now.
Right this moment. Feeling a cold breeze as if someone has walked past you. Again, in the Penetang Centennial Museum episode, that pops up to me, but on many other locations as well. But the last one they have here is one that when you do watch our Leclerc episode really stands out for me, is the dark, depressing feeling, especially in one particular location. So interesting. That's kind of some of the main ones that you hit. And I think the nausea and that really stuff is definitely that the off-putting feeling of that energy is definitely something that we've
surprised that they
encountered.
Didn't say that one in there. That was one that came up. I mean, we both felt a lot. It's like, we hungry? What's going on?
And this last one, from this article here that I wanted to touch on is some of the signs, which some of these actually have also happened within our investigations, are like what are some of the signs that the building can almost communicate to you. So do you want me to just go into it? Get into it?
Well, I mean, we've had stuff move. right? Like, I mean, we don't live in the places, so I don't know if stuff was misplaced or not.
We've
but
had
it's
shutter
probably-
door, window shutters
stuff
open.
like that happen. Anyway,
So there's lights on and off or up and down on their own, which we have had as well. Light bulbs blowing frequently. Not sure what that means, but
well, the Keewatin, there's
oh yeah. Oh, like them going out, like going out.
that one literally blew up though.
Yeah,
from the
apparently we weren't there when that happened, but it is a story that has happened there. Sounds of items being dropped, but when you go to investigate, there's nothing there. We
Yep,
absolutely
heard
have
a lot
that.
of
Seeing unexplained shadows from the corner of your eye.
Yep.
Strange behavior from pets in the property, dogs barking or growling at something you cannot see, cats staring at a particular area as if they can see someone. We got that at home, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
I should comment that we live on the most haunted street in Penetanguishene, Ontario.
Which is one of the most haunted towns probably in Ontario.
Probably Canada. Hearing voices of people, whispers, or someone calling your name, which I have absolutely for sure 100% experienced at the Eerie Opera House, to name some. So, very, very interesting. Oh, there's a couple more. Seeing twinkling lights, mist, or unexplained moving shapes, sudden temperature drops, especially in the air in one area of the property, which many locations we've experienced. Off the top of my mind, the Keewatin
it's
stands
kind
out.
of funny reading those and not knowing, right? Because we didn't. Again, I do a little bit of research. We look into stuff, but it's more of just going in and feeling it for yourself, and like you said, just taking people with us. So. Yeah, I don't want to be tainted by stuff and like get that already in your head. So it's cool to hear that. I mean, you kind of feel that and you know it anyway, but it's cool to hear that stuff and be like, oh yeah, we experience all that.
Yeah, and it's almost reaffirming that what we're experiencing is not just that created. It's so thank you, Carla Chalice, for that incredible article.
Nice.
So I think just touching on that, it might be cool to just pop in some stories, perhaps at this point, and then we can talk about maybe some equipment and such like that is utilized or can be utilized for investigations. So, did you want to pop into one of your own experiences or stories that you have?
Yeah, okay. I don't know if I've ever actually. I feel like I've probably said some of these stories before, but I have always been very interested in the supernatural and paranormal and everything as long as I can remember, and made some silly choices of playing with the Ouija board a lot. My grandma had one at our cottage. With all the board games, as a Ouija board is, you can find it in. Well, I don't know if you can anymore, but go in Toys R Us and you can find them in the board game section. So yeah, I had no idea what it was. Nobody ever said don't touch that thing or anything. So we were playing around with it. In hindsight, I think I was like, oh, you can take that home with you, as was what happens with Ouija boards. Like, just get them out of your house.
Yeah.
So I did take it home, and I had it for a long time. And used it quite a bit. I used it a lot with some of my friends, and some of the stuff that happened with that thing is just unexplainable. Like nothing crazy, nothing harmful. Luckily enough, happened, but just some absolutely weird things. Some
Could
of
you
the
comment
stuff,
on
yeah,
it?
some of the stuff that I could say again, it's just could be coincidence, could be whatever. A lot of the friends that I had used it with, to this day, will discredit it or like say it didn't even happen or just push it away and whatever, shake their head at it. It was just whatever. Some of the things I remember from at one house, which I always thought was haunted. I don't know if I mentioned the places. Probably not. Somebody's living in there now that isn't no longer us. But yeah, one place I was playing with Nick, who we'll probably have on the show at some point. He was actually going to be on today. And there's a couple of us. Two of us were playing. Actually, I think it was actually Nick and Kyle were playing with the Ouija board, and I was over somewhere else, and we're like, just silly things, right? Like I had, I think, a Marilyn Monroe, like, little card. And it was like, it showed me her birth and death, and I said, oh, how old was Marilyn Monroe when she died? And, it did it. I was like, oh, I can guarantee that Nick and Kyle didn't know the answer to that. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
But so I was like, okay,
Secret,
whatever.
avid
They
Marilyn Monroe
could have
fans.
known, whatever. That's not a big deal. A couple other things that it was just like, they're doing it. There's no reason, like, I'm thinking of a number. What I could have said, whatever. I think I wrote it down actually. One of like, here's a number. Show them like, just stuff, right? That they couldn't have answered, and it was weird. It could have been, like I said, could have been coincidence. I just highly think it's too much of a coincidence that it's not associated. So that was that. But a couple other times, just super weird. Again, nothing crazy where I'd asked it to make like a pen fly or to move stuff. Never really happened. It had, I think it was my sister and I using it, like jumped off the board. Not really on its own, like we still kind of had, but it decided to jump off the table. There was also some weird things, like clearly talking to like not a good spirit. We were always really good at saying goodbye and letting it go, which is good because I don't even know how we knew that. But it was always, it's on the board, it says goodbye, you say goodbye and let it go. Because you hear stories where it's just like you just let that into your life and then it
doesn't go away.
Screwed, man.
Yeah.
I have been told by a psychic or by a whatever they're some of them called that I have this dark figure following me around. Yeah, she made me drink some water with a bunch of rocks in it.
Did you just swallow the rocks?
I gave her a lot of money.
Ugh.
It was stupid.
Is the dark figure still with you?
Well, I feel much better, so so thank you, lady, for
the rock water.
Taking my $80 and
that's funny.
And giving me some precious stones. But we can get into the precious stone stuff later because there is something to be said about that.
I was going to touch on the Ouija when you're
one last thing. So another place, at my dad's place when we were growing up, the again really just silly stuff. I was like, "What's on TV?" And it said NFL. And I was like, okay, just went to NFL. That's funny. Thinking back now, probably pretty easy. If it was a Sunday, then there wouldn't be many other choices. But the first thing, I just turned the TV on, the old go up and dial TV, right? And
so wait, were you doing it by yourself? Or were you doing it with someone else?
Might have been me and my sister.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably. I might have been doing it by myself. But either way, I think it was me and my sister. And I just turned on the TV and first, like, right out of it, NFL today, like, first thing that come out of their mouth.
Craziness.
Super weird. So there's that. Again, all these things. But the weirdest one that this is when I stopped using it. And maybe I should have kept using it after. But
I don't know.
But I asked, so the Leafs were playing San Jose. I said, okay, who's going to win? And that's easy. You got a 50-50 chance to get that right. So, okay, who's going to win? What's the score going to be? So it said Toronto's going to win, and the score is going to be 4-2. I used to listen to the radio. I'm getting goosebumps saying that. I used to listen to the radio experience. When I was when I went to bed. I always just had the radio on, and I slept in the basement. So that night they're going over the scores, and the Leafs went 4-2, and I just just froze.
Yeah.
And I remember to this day, and I'll never forget, the Leafs were up 4-1. I believe it was Dave Ellett had the puck behind the net with like no time left. Time was ticking down. He went to shoot the puck out from behind the net, his own thing, just to clear the puck to end the game. Hit a guy's leg in front of the net and went in the net on their own. Scored on himself.
What?
To make it 4-2.
That's nuts.
To end the game. Weird. And again, could be a super crazy coincidence, but just that's nuts.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I don't have as interesting with the Ouija experience, but just Ouija. I remember being in grade 6 or between grade 6 and 8, because it was with a certain friend of mine. We used to have sleepovers at our house all the time. And I remember we were using the Ouija board, or I think my parents had one as well. Ouija board, pardon. Ouija board. And actually, I don't know if we were using it. My mom actually had one at the time, and we were going to, and I was trying to see if she would drop it off so we could use it, I think was the story. But what was interesting is that the way that their house was laid out was in where their phone was, in their kitchen area, there was like a big glass door, like sliding doors out into their backyard. And the story is more about just the interesting timing, and Ouija was involved in the littlest way. But I went back there to use the phone to call my parents to ask them to bring the Ouija board over. And
could be Ouija, might have been.
And it turned out that just by timing and fluke that there was someone actually breaking into all the garages on that street, and they bypassed their house. I don't know if because they saw me on the phone looking out, and because I was like having an intense conversation with my parents. Thought I was like calling the police or something, but their house was actually bypassed in the garage break-ins.
Awesome.
But I think you touched on this a little bit is the idea of, I don't know if we talked about this on the last episode, but like your openness or kind of I don't know how to explain this. Well, yes and no, but I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is I want to share a story about. So years ago, my parents are. My mom is a believer. My father is more of a skeptic. And a couple of my friends were very big believers. And there was a psychic fair coming to Guelph. I went to the University of Guelph, and nice really for I don't know if at the time I'd actually had experiences yet. I will touch on that in a little bit. But at this point, I kind of went in thinking of like psychics as like a big scam. Just being like, oh, okay, I'm going to go get my money and I'm going to hear all this stuff and whatever is going to not be true. So because I come from both sides of things and I like to try to be an open-minded person in general, I went in and I said, you know what? If someone or something draws me to their booth, I'll go and check it out. Because it was a fair, so there was many psychics there. And sure enough, I walked in and I swear it was like, oh, there was like a light. Like there was just like, there was one at the end of the room that just was drawing me in quite a lot. So I kind of, walked around looking at it like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then I got to the booth and I was like, no, I got to do it. And with this woman, she actually did a light test. So you actually go into this booth and it almost like takes a picture and it can tell you what color your aura is. And depending on the level of the color that comes out of this picture determines your aura. So I can't remember the exact color of it. I feel like it was like gold. Ooh. But she said that it meant that I was more receptive to spirit and I was more more open to being able to connect. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And I should preface this that before we went in there, my mom's sole hope was to connect with my grandmother who'd passed very badly. Very badly. She wanted to connect with her. So I went in, did that test. I was like, okay, sure. Camera tricks, whatever.
Did you see it? Did she show you the picture?
Yeah. I saw everything. And then we sat down and to date my age a bit, we actually sat down and she popped in a video or a radio or a cassette tape. And she did a reading for me. And there was a lot of things that were said, some of which, ironically, the way my life has now panned out, have become very accurate. Making an impact in my community and, helping lots of people. But what really connected with me was she actually connected to my grandmother. And people could argue that, grandmas they're all the same, may carry an extra little bit of love, extra cushion, really like happy, like loving woman. But she described my grandmother so beyond on point that it was like, you couldn't even argue it. But what really got me was she said, there's someone that you're here with today that wants to connect to this person really badly and she's not ready yet. And that was what hit me because even I knew my mom wasn't ready to make that connection yet. And just going on from that day was interesting because it did change my scope a bit. And I think, again, I can't remember if it was before or after I started having experiences at our place in Guelph that we were living. But certainly did change my thought process a little bit about it. I've been someone who's always had deja vu. I've often had premonitions or feelings before someone in my family has passed or something bad has happened or asked someone a random question and then something very eerily. I asked a friend of mine who was who grew up in, oh goodness, where did he live? Okay, it doesn't matter. I asked him. I grew up in a country where there was violence was even more predominant, and I randomly asked him if he'd ever been shot before, and he told me he had. And that's within the same 12 hours, a very close family friend of ours was murdered. So it was just random, weird stuff like that.
You've also been now told by a few different psychics that you have strong intuition and
and that's come over time and being more open to that. But yeah, no, that was kind of one thing I kind of want to touch about on is that ability to be open and just kind of letting yourself breathe within the moment and be present, I guess.
Yeah, just open. right?
Mm-hmm.
Openness, and I don't even think belief is a necessarily thing. If you choose not to believe, then you're just not going to believe, regardless of it literally hits you in the face. You know, you'll find an excuse, or you'll find a reason that it is not.
Yeah.
That.
Did you have a story you want to share? I was going to get you to go into your story. I was going to go mine, and then we'll try the call, or do you want to try the call first?
You know what? We can always say our stories. Let's
get on the call. We'll give
it
a go.
We've been going for a while. You guys are probably getting tired of hearing our voices, right?
So we're actually gonna call my mom.
Yeah, let's go. We got it all set up here. Let's see. You're gonna need to put the headphones on. So
I will.
I think
so. I'll be able to hear what she's saying, and hopefully you guys will be able to hear too.
This will be fun. This is our
I guess
first
you can't.
caller.
You can't hear.
I might be able to.
You may get to hear some of the mother and daughter conversation part.
Oh, that's great.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, Mom. It's your daughter, Deanna, calling you.
Well, hello there.
Oh, hello. We're on the air, if you will. And do you still have a second to share with me and share with us your story? So why don't you tell us a little bit about when and where this happened?
Okay. Our family. Sorry. Let me start that over again.
No problem.
My father passed away at the early age of 66. He was laid out at the funeral parlor for 3 days. I was so overwhelmed I could not bring myself to go up to the open casket until the night before he was to be buried. Mm-hmm. My brother Peter, my husband Al, and I were the only ones in the room. I knelt in front of the casket, concentrating on somehow being able to communicate with my dad with all my might. Mm-hmm. I, wanting so to know in my mind if he was at peace.
Yeah.
It had been storming all day, and as I was saying goodbye, all of a sudden, there were two double French doors behind the casket, and they flew open. Mm. And as I say, the storm wasn't any worse. It had been all day, and it just happened. And they just opened with a bang, and rain was coming in. The three of us were shocked, and we all felt it was a sign. It was a moment that we will never forget.
That's really cool.
So that's it.
That's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know that from being at the house, I feel like your house might have a little something going on. Have you ever felt anything there?
Actually, it's funny because sometimes when we go out on our deck, we'll, like just in a hallway that there is before you go into the back door, we hear, like, it sounds like there's somebody upstairs, and I know there's nobody home. It's happened to myself, and it's happened to my husband. And I'm not even sure if it's ever happened to you, but I know it certainly happened to us. I can't even remember the last time it happened, if you want to know the truth. But
well, you guys have an old home, right? Like how old would you say that house is?
Oh, it's over 100 years.
Yeah, so very, very possible that happened.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing.
You told your mom. Maybe you're hearing this for the first time, Joe, but we actually did.
Oh yes, we did.
We should actually do the
EMF meter in the house, and
we did.
Pretty strong readings.
You did check it?
Yeah, because we were actually at the house. You guys were out, and my parents often have students that stay with them. So it was a bit the afternoon. We have a young son who was asleep on my husband, who was just working in the living room, and I was actually in the dining room working on my computer, and I heard the sound of like things being moved around upstairs, and I didn't think about it very much at first because I thought it was the student, and then I turned to Lincoln and Jamie and was like, wait a second, you're here. Mom and Dad are gone.
Yeah, who's doing
and
it?
it's 2:00 in the afternoon and the student's not here.
Yeah.
So we actually, we did go up with the meter. We didn't obviously go into the student's room, but we did have the meter up and we did see some stuff moving, but it was the sound of almost boxes moving, like the sound of, people going through a good cleaning spree up there. So it was not a slight sound of things moving, but
there's a couple.
yeah, so definitely something and very common thing to happen in older homes. If there's anything at your house, it's definitely not an angry or an unwelcome spirit. So, well, thanks so much. We'll see you later. Thank you for sharing your story.
Okay, there was another thing that happened in our family.
Go for it.
My sister died in a car accident. She wasn't driving, and she was only 21 years old. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, my mom and dad were at the house, and some people came over to, give them their condolences.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I wasn't home at the time, but I walked in the door shortly after a very strange thing happened. So they're standing there talking, and all of a sudden a light bulb that was in the ceiling fell right out of the ceiling. Didn't hit anybody, but Mom, who almost went through a nervous breakdown, of course, when that happened, like losing Diane, she was all excited when I walked in the house, and she said, Joanne, we got a sign from your sister.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And, from what I understand, that it's not anything that's uncommon to happen to people. Not. So those two things. I mean, I know there was something that happened years ago, many years ago, when my dad was sleeping in an apartment before any of us were born. And they could have sworn that something was moved or something happened. I can't remember it all, but that really made Mom feel that there was some kind of spirit that must have come in the house or in the apartment. But I really don't know.
That's all right.
Too much more
we'll have to do some more research on that one and get you to share it another time. But we actually, we were just reading about some of the signs, and the bulb is definitely one of the things that can happen. But we'll save those stories for another time. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
And we'll see you later.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Love you.
Cool. Interesting. Ooh, beep beep beeps. So, I was going to touch on the stuff that we experienced in the house as well. But did you have any stories that you wanted to? So weird having earphones on and not having earphones on.
Yeah, it's so clean.
Yeah,
clear. I couldn't really hear a ton of what you were saying. Actually, I said I could hear, but I couldn't.
Oh, okay. Well, I can. One of the things that she mentioned was something we experienced at the Discovery Harbor episode, was that basically the idea of the weather isn't consistent with our experience, but the weather had been really bad. It was she hadn't really been able to go to the casket for quite some time. She was in a room with my father and my uncle, and all of a sudden the two French doors basically swung open.
Right. Before,
So the same sort of idea that, like with Discovery Harbor, we did have the shutter doors open. Obviously, it was a different force. But similar within the family dynamic, she mentioned after my aunt had passed away, a bulb had just kind of fallen out.
Weird.
And her mom was so excited because she was like, Joanne, she connected with us, right. which is an interesting reaction because not everyone would have that reaction or association. So, we were talking here about a lot of pleasant experiences. I actually had a very scary one. So when I was living in Guelph, I love Guelph. It's an incredible town, incredible people, and incredible history. We were living on a street just off of kind of the main street there. And it was an old boarding house. It was an older house on the block. And it was our house and actually our neighbor's house. We had some very good friends that lived next door, and they had this creepy basement. I should try to get them on the call on a podcast. That was like all red, like it was so creepy. It was so disturbing. It just like screamed, "I have a story." But in our house, we did have a downstairs basement, like tenant that we didn't really know. But we had weird things that would happen in this place, like our central vac would turn on all on its own for no reason. Our washing machine would go crazy, like it would like rock the house and like, but not consistently. It was just really strange. So when I was living in Guelph, we had there was about 5 or 6 of us living in this house. So one of my roommates lived on the main floor and kind of the old living room area. And upstairs was myself and 2 other girls. And sorry, there was 5 of us altogether. And then in the attic was 1 other girl. So the lights were on a lot in that house, which is interesting now that I think of that. But I remember one day I was at home and I was working away in my room, and I had a TV in my room. And I've always been fascinated by stories about ghosts and spirits. And I think I was watching one of the many shows that are on like T&E or one of the other channels at the time that was playing a lot of those shows. And I remember lying on my bed, and it was kind of facing the door, and I was in the old master bedroom. And there was a really weird energy about that room. Like, now that I think about it, there was a lot of like odd spots that felt weird and stuff like that. Excuse me. And I was I was lying in bed, and I had my TV was on a low table just at the foot of my bed, and I had perfect view of the door. And I remember knowing that no one was home. I remember that I saw the shadow of footprints right at like the shadow of feet, like boots outside my door. And I was nervous. I was by myself in the house. So I quietly crept up and locked the door. I was like, okay, well.
The bedroom door.
The bedroom door. I was like, I had my little portable phone, so I had it in with me. And I remember this. I don't really remember the shadow leaving, but I remember just being like, getting that feeling of like, something's not right. Something doesn't feel right. And, you know, if I was in the generation of cell phones, I probably would have texted someone, but I didn't want to alarm anyone and call them or anything like that. And then I remembered hearing footsteps going up to Claire's room. So part of me was like, oh, maybe Claire's home. So maybe it was her boyfriend or whoever it was. And maybe it's just, you know, I'm being overly sensitive. So I carried on with my night, was a bit nervous to go to sleep because I still felt uneasy. And I went to bed, and I remember lying there, and I remember this feeling of basically almost paralysis. Like I couldn't move my body. I was lying on my back, which is also not something I normally do. I normally have always been a tummy sleeper or a side sleeper. And I remember feeling my arms almost pinned to my sides. And I felt the feeling of an animal coming up onto the bed. Like if you're a dog or a cat owner, you know that feeling of like what that feels like, of something kind of slowly coming up closer and closer to your face. And I remember the feeling of long nails and the sheet being pulled almost over my face. I honestly felt like something was trying to suffocate me, and I was so scared. But and at the time, I've never been a very, like, I shouldn't say I've never been. I'm not an overly religious person, but I have always been a big believer in spirits kind of being with me and protecting me. I've said very, very often, even before the whole psychic fair and everything, that I often felt like my grandfather or my grandmother was with me. And I remember at that point, my grandfather had passed. I don't even think it was that long before. And I just started saying, like, actually, no, I don't know I think it was my grandmother. And I just saying, Grandma, protect me, Grandma, protect me, Grandma, protect me. And I just started, but I couldn't talk. But I remember thinking it really loudly, and then slowly it was like the grip loosened, and slowly I was able to actually talk, because you couldn't move. You couldn't get yourself out of the situation. That's terrifying. It was. And I just remember finally being able to move, and I just sat up in bed and I said, listen, I'm here. I'm not here to disrespect you. We're just sharing the space. If I've done anything at all to upset you, or, you know, whatever that might be, I mean no harm. I just hope that we can, you know, live basically in harmony for the next like 6 months to like get the elf out of here. And I can honestly say after that moment, I never experienced anything from that spirit or energy or again.
That's so weird.
But that was it was, you know, there was a bit more to that experience than I feel comfortable talking about, but it was absolutely terrifying. And I should comment that the next day, so that was, I actually had gone to bed quite early that day, and I did find out the next day that no one in fact had been home at the time that happened, including my roommate that lived upstairs at the time, and they had come home maybe an hour or 2 hours later. So I was 100% in the house by myself when that all happened. Wow. So yeah, it was. I don't think I've even told you that story before. It was pretty terrifying.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Well, we're very
stopped.
lucky that in our experiences with this show, we've never experienced an energy that really wanted to cause us harm. The worst we've really experienced is someone that didn't want to talk to us, or if the energy was very cold and scary, we just moved on to the next room.
Got out. Yeah, that's pretty wild. I guess my biggest experience was and I'm trying so hard to get into this building. So the old Sadie Moranis building, for those of you that are in the Midland area, you know what I'm talking about. It's right beside the arena, right beside the curling club, really. Building's super old, over 100 years old. It's used to be a morgue, apparently, from word on the street. I used to stay there a lot. Whatever reason, I sort of was semi-living there for a bit. But I spent a lot of time there. In the apartment upstairs, it's a 3 or 4 story building, pretty big. One night, it's very old. There's always like a weird feeling in there, whatever. One night, sort of nowhere. I can't fully remember exactly what it was, but like it was to a point where just didn't feel comfortable, and like, so there was stairs on the outside that we always used to get up to the apartment, and then the inside, there was a business, like I said, Sadie Moranis, which is a real estate firm, was downstairs, and I think there might have been I think that there was only the one apartment upstairs. So yeah, one night just was weird, just weird feeling, and I can't remember if anything came before, but there was like a banging at the door, and yeah, so I was like, okay, well, I guess somebody's there. But for some reason, I was just really freaked out because like it wasn't like, you know, somebody said hello or whatever. Anybody that knew that, like, anybody that was gonna come up there would know that we were there. Also, the door downstairs was typically locked, so you couldn't come in through those stairs anyway. So there was just a bang at the door. And again, it's sort of foggy in my head, but I distinctly remember that, and opening the door and there not being anybody there. And like, I can't remember if I was so very close to calling 911. Like, I had the phone in my hand, I had a bat in my hand, just like, so for real, like, felt threatened. Cause that wasn't a common thing. Like, you know, like I said, I was super into all that stuff, but like ready to call the cops. Like I might have even dialed 911. Just, it was super weird. And then I can't remember if I heard footsteps or whatever. I don't think I did, because I remember being like, okay, it's just somebody playing a joke.
Right.
And saying that in my head, but knowing like I never felt that was the case. Just super weird to have that like full out physical thing, like somebody's on the other side of the door, but nobody's on the other side of the door.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of like I would say the most experience that I've had. Like, that's a full out physical thing happening. I mean, we've had a lot of cool stuff happen on the show.
Yeah.
But that to me was like, okay, something's up. There's something going on in the world. I need to find some stuff out here.
Well, it's interesting. I was just thinking about that, and I was just thinking about, I had mentioned before that I used to watch a lot of the shows, and I was like, why was that part of my story there? And it was because actually the following day after that experience had happened, I was watching an episode, and there was a gentleman, I think, that had almost the exact same experience the next day.
Weird.
And when he was telling his story, was actually very similar to my own life story, where he had almost drowned as a child, and ever since had different feelings and energies and such like that. And myself, I almost drowned as a child. And one of the things that he mentioned was, people that have either almost experienced death or what have you, is that when you're in the water and you can see the layers of the water almost and then see the water. And I remember that vividly from my own experience. My mom, actually, who we just spoke to, was the one who saved me. But it's crazy because I remember it was like his story was almost the same, not full details, but very similar to that, like paralysis and what have you. And he'd also had that. And you've had some very close experiences to, with your rollover. And
yeah, there's been some pretty miraculous, I guess you might say, experiences that I'm still here. Yeah. A lot of them really. So definitely feel like someone's there. There's someone looking out for me for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of times like numerous times where it's like, I probably shouldn't really be here anymore.
Yeah. That's really awesome. We've covered a lot in this episode.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to save that other story. I'm so excited for you guys to hear it because it's so cool. So yeah, that's, I think, unless there's anything you wanted to touch on in this last episode.
Yeah, let's get something out of the way quick. So right now, Haunted Huronia it's not on hiatus, but we are not officially signed on for a second season or anything. We are still shooting episodes. We are looking to get picked up by a network. I don't know if that's something that
any networks out there
Bell wants to hear or know, but they know. I mean,
well, they know
the
now
contract
too.
is up. We are still shooting episodes. We have, I don't know if I should mention where we are.
I would keep it a secret for now.
But I will make the announcement that, because you can still go online on YouTube and watch episode 1, where there is a lot of references to the Beck House in Penetanguishene.
Ooh.
I have been told that after long conversations and circumstances that were unable to have us in there, that we are getting a green light to go in there and shoot. So that is in the pipeline, and that is going to happen soon. I'm excited. That's a place that I've been. Well, I think if you listen to the last episode, certain places that I've been.
It's on the list.
Really wanting to see, that is like on top of it. So the Beck House in Penetanguishene.
And definitely tune into Bell 5 TV 1, Channel 1 only to catch all the episodes we've shot so far. We're so grateful to Bell for being our home for season 1. And who knows where we'll go season 2. You can only see them there for now.
Yeah.
So definitely check it out. Be some of the first to see those. And hey, if you see the episodes and there's places that we've experienced, that we've gone to that either you haven't gone to yourself, go check them out. Not only are they just beautiful locations with rich of history, go check them out for yourself. We'd love to hear your stories. We will be talking on future episodes, but on future podcast episodes about those locations. So we'd love to hear, what you've experienced along the way. And places perhaps, as Jamie said, that we haven't been to yet in the Ontario area and really beyond, that you have experiences at, whether it's houses, whether it's old schools, churches.
A field.
It could be anywhere. A bridge. We've heard stories about stuff under bridges, like wherever it is. We'd love to hear those stories. Yeah, we got lots of goodness ready for you guys. We got so much more to talk about. So stay tuned, please. If you like what you heard, please share our podcast with anyone that you think might dig it. Like us, share us.
If you want to sponsor us, we can help you out with that too.
Yeah, well, thanks again. I've been Deanna.
I still am.
He
Jamie.
still is Jamie. All right. Did you have a tagline that you?
I forget what it is.
Stay scared.
That's what
there you go. All right, guys. Thanks so much.